Hey, Podnutsians. Welcome to another episode of Linux for the Rest of Us. This is episode 232. This is a podcast all about Linux and the ecosystem around Linux, free, Libra, open source software, whether it is just the people involved with it, the software involved with it, or the mentality involved with it. I am joined again by Bruce. How's everything going, Bruce?
Dora, I gotta tell you, I'm furious and afraid at the same time, but we'll go into that soon.
Well, I think you just scared the hell out of me, but I will say it's been at least 3 weeks since we've done a show. Part of it was I have been completely sick, and if you've taken a look at podnuts.com, you'll see I haven't done a lot of shows for at least 2 weeks now. I've been nonstop hacking and coughing and fever and sleep sweating kind of thing, but I think I'm actually finally getting better.
Well, to be fair, you also had a co-host who totally slept through the show 2 weeks ago, so that's totally on me.
Nah, you were fine, man. I will say the things in the Linux verse has not slowed down. Things seem to be going at a brisk pace. I am constantly, I'll say, shocked and amazed at the fact that the Linux podcast out there tend to like talk about the latest update to Linux Mint for like 40 minutes. And then when all is said and done, it's basically the exact same Linux Mint that there was 2 months ago. So I hope there's better things to talk about than that.
Oh, there absolutely is. So, short of when I was alluding to earlier when I was furious, apparently there's new distribution that was added to the distribution list today, and that's called Fury BSD, which I believe is probably powered by the rage of the user installing it. But anyway, so there's that part. But the afraid part alludes to a sports issue that has come up in the sports world. I know that you're not the biggest hockey fan, but Peters in Calgary actually resigned his position for a remark he made over 10 years ago.
Yep.
And that, I've got to tell you, Dor, I mean, we're all human. Are you not allowed to make mistakes? And I mean, let's face it, some are more inexcusable than others, but the fact of the matter is that we make them. And at this point, really concerned, because what stops people from going back 20, 30 years? Quite frankly, I'm afraid if any of the 20s come back to me, I'm screwed.
Yeah. I will say I never heard of Fury BSD. First off, fantastic name, really solid looking website. Unfortunately, in typical fashion, when you look at the desktop, it literally looks like something from like 2003. But you'll have that. BSD is more solid, less cutting edge. And I'll say this: me and my son, I tried to explain to my son that's one of the extreme flaws about today's modern culture. And I did hear about that hockey coach. 10 years ago was 10 years ago. What people today have a very hard time understanding is time, context, intent. Now, granted, what the guy said wasn't cool, but it should have been handled 10 years ago, not in 2019. What I did back in 2008, if you hold against me now, then I have no chance of succeeding whatsoever. I might as well change my name, move to Vietnam, and just rent my services out.
Well, we'll hold the reins back on that one. But one other thing, sort of sliding away from that, I agree with you there. But the other part too, going back to Fury BSD too, one part of me was really hoping it would be after Sergeant Fury, because that could be a really cool logo.
That would have made a lot of sense, yes. And like, here's the thing. I'm a true believer in, stick with what got you to the dance. BSD's hallmark the thing that really made it popular was its unbelievable stability and its unbelievable security when it comes to network devices, when it comes to hardened VPN solutions, hardened firewall solutions. It's a BSD solution, which is always the best. So to make BSD a desktop solution, to me, it's kind of like forcing the round peg through the square hole, which in 2019 might not be a popular thing to say, but really, is that what you want to do? Is what I would ask the creators of Fury BSD.
Well, actually, you hit on something that I'm hoping to talk about maybe next show. And that's VPN, because I've been actually very curious about it, especially in light of NordVPN, which apparently was compromised not too long ago. And of course, there's always the notion of rolling your own. So I was thinking that if you're up, why don't we maybe not the next show, but the show after, so we get a little chance to do some homework here, because like a lot of other average people out there, I'm sure a lot of folks just simply don't use VPN when they're logging on from home, and I think that it might be a nice security measure.
I am very much in favor of talking about VPNs, but I'll say it like this. It all depends on what you expect when you use it. There's a multiple different use cases for a VPN, and like PIA, private internet access, was just bought out. That to me is one of the most stable, confident, secure, isolation, anonymous systems that has been available for end users for like the last 10, maybe 15 years, and they just got bought out. And when a company gets bought out, I don't care what the press release says. I don't care what representatives of the company say. I don't care what Reddit threads say. I don't care what rumor mills speculate. I don't care what anything says. I care about actions. And so far, PIA is still among the most trustworthy VPNs that are out there. Now, it is literally December 1st, 10:07 p.m. That could change tomorrow. And if you say, well, that's a cop out, well, then I'll say, you take it, you bend over, and you stuff it up yourself. Because the only constant is change. And if you expect me to give a definitive answer for all time, then you are unbelievably deluded and polluted, is what I'll say. Everything is time sensitive, just like the hockey coach. It depends on when you're saying it, and it depends on why you're saying it. For all I know, that coach believed he was saying that because he thought that was the best way to get results out of that player. And I can't tell him he was wrong. At the same token, right now, PIA is among the most safe, secure, trusted VPNs on the market. Is there something better? I don't know. Is there something worse? Oh, hell yes. Can PIA be trusted? Well, maybe for right now, but I can't tell you about next week.
Well, and again, I think the point is almost moot at this. If you do anything remotely with Google, I mean, I think it's safe to say that there was actually a discussion with a security professional a long time ago, actually 3-4 years ago, at a major conference. He started it off by saying, let's just forget about the issue of privacy. Let's stop pretending it exists, because it doesn't, amid the myriad number of hacks. In fact, before Experian, you had Heartland, which is a credit card clearinghouse. Now, interestingly enough, I was at a security conference a couple of weeks back, and so there's a new company that has since replaced Heartland, who is even worse, because they've already been compromised 4 times in the last year, and we hear none. It's just one of those things where one day in the mail, hey, here's your new card, and they're not at light so they don't have to disclose their hacks, and I'm a little upset at that. But we'll wrap up things a little neatly here. So, in regards to Peters, like I said, yes, there's no excuse for the way he coached. However, there was an interesting article in the Post today where they're interviewing Sean Avery, the NHL punk of the century, and it was funny because it was talking about the time he was kicked by his coaches. And that's plural. And it's funny because one time, the way the article was run, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but it was also serious at the same time. It was like, so the first time Avery got kicked, it's like, well, it's because of who you are. He goes, no, it's because I made a mistake and threw the puck in the opposite end and my guy 7 stitches in the head. Because, but I got kicked again later on. He goes, oh, what was that for? He goes, well, I was supposed to be out on a penalty kill and inadvertently gave up the puck, which ultimately led to a turnover. He goes, so he kicked you for that? He goes, no, it's partly because I tripped my own defense doing it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you deal with people, when you deal with emotions, when you deal with individuals, it's almost like HR. I, as a nerd, cannot tell somebody what they're doing is wrong if it ends up with positive results. All I can say is, if it was me, would it be comfortable or not? And it's like at work, I can tell you when I'm clearly uncomfortable.
Now, one of the things I'd like to do is put up a Kanban board for myself. There, I know we said we were going to add anything for the corporate world, but you know what? It sounds somewhat formal than just simply saying, hey, I'm going to put a sticky note up. But there are a couple of things I'd like to also talk about, too, that I've come across, because I feel if I don't put these down, I'm going to forget them. One of the things, though, I do want to say, we talked about other shows, and one of the things I'd like to give a shout out to is the fine folks over at Hack 5, because geez, they're still doing it. I was looking at, they've got 2,000 episodes. That's crazy. And they still put out a quality show. I'm not sure what your opinions of them are, but I kind of like them. I've had no problem with them over the years.
I mean, like anything else, I've had mixed feelings about them over the years, but I will say this. Darren Kitchen is unbelievably dedicated. It's really difficult for me to say how dedicated he is because I don't know if I can actually fathom it. The other people on Hack 5, it's a mixed bag. You know what I mean? Some people are there because they like Darren. Some people are there because they don't like to work 9-to-5 jobs. Some people are there because they really enjoy tinkering, which is what hacking used to be. I'll say this. Hack 5 are the people that introduced me to Yasager, the Wi-Fi pineapple. They've introduced me to at least, I'll say now in my lifetime, 20 or 30 things I never even heard of before they mentioned it. And they allowed me to go on a deep dive in my own world and just figure out things that I never thought was imaginable. And I'll say they've even had people like Patrick Norton on episodes of Hack 5. They've had really good people on shows. Time will tell where they're going to end up, but I'll say this. There's little doubt in my mind, if Darren Kitchen remains in control, Hack 5 is going to be fine. They're going to end up just fine. They're going to just end up with insane amounts of content, insane amount of insight, insane amount of things under their umbrella. It's just honest. It seems like honest to goodness good stuff.
And I agree. I think that's probably the biggest appeal to it is its earnest aspect of it. Well, I mean, it's no different from you and the approach that you make for your shows as well. So, I mean, that's out there. One of the other things that I'd also like to look forward on a little bit later on too. I know that a couple of people through the years, through various, Linux basics and the Podnuts community, have tinkered on and off with things like Jack, Ardor, and things like that. Now, I'm stepping it up a little bit more because over the past summer, I've dropped a ton of money on some high-end music equipment, and at this point, I'm looking to actually start recording. But the barrier for me, and it will always be one, is I'm not using Pro Tools. I refuse to do anything that requires me to use a Mac. I will not do it. And so I've reached out to one of the Sweetwater reps to actually have this discussion at length. So I'll be very curious to see what he comes up with, what he can offer, and then obviously, through our future shows, I'll give updates on how that's going, because I think there are a surprising number of musicians looking for these alternatives. It doesn't necessarily have to be open source, but there's a lot of stuff out there for just the average person, and I'm intent on finding out what that is.
I'll say this: unbelievably cool. I know Sweetwater is like, I don't want to use terms like the Holy Grail. Sweetwater is the place you go to when you unbelievably care about quality. There's no getting around it. Now, for the curveball, I think one of the things that is going to help musicians with online participation, to the degree that I honestly don't think musicians can even comprehend, Bruce, is, are you ready for it? Completely out of left field.
Fire away.
5G.
5G?
I know, dramatic pause. Well, here's the reason. China is really the only place where 5G is actually launched. The promise of 5G has nothing to do with speeds of streams. Okay. It's not like you're going to get a gig down, a gig up. No, 5G has nothing to do with that. 5G has to do with latency. Okay. 5G is supposed to give you so low latency. They just did a demonstration, and I'm going to try to have a link in the notes, but don't hold me to it, where China demonstrated 1,000 miles, I want to say it was 1,000 miles separated between two orchestras. And they were able to, because of 5G, time things together and actually create music afar. I will say, I don't know nothing about no music, except all musicians crave as close to zero latency with everything, whether it is just the local processor, whether it's the MIDI keyboard or anything else. And I believe if you, Bruce, can sit at home with whatever your musical instrument is of choice and connect with people, whether it be in California, Florida, Oregon, Ontario, Sao Paulo, Uzbekistan, Paris, France, and have literally near no latency, you can actually contribute together and actually create music afar. And that's the kind of thing where I do believe we are not going to understand the actual impact of the next generation of mobile, quote unquote, networks. Because here's the dirty secret, Bruce. Most carriers are going to offer in-home solutions for 5G, where they're going to try to take on in-home internet service providers. And I can tell you, if internet providers don't really get on the ball, I can see people like T-Mobile offering solutions for in-home internet that will literally rival $300 a month, like Comcast type service.
Oh, you know what? There's probably no doubt in that, given the fact that Comcast is just lazy with the folks that they have. It's funny. This really isn't too much different from what I consider what happened in the newspaper industry. They just got so full of themselves thinking, oh, no, everybody needs their news. They won't go on some fancy internet for it. Well, here we are now, and major newspapers have lost thousands, millions of readers, and it's because they failed to adapt on time. And I can see this happening in the internet space too, because you've got large companies like, well, I can't say that with FiOS, but I do know that other people's experiences haven't been as good as that. But Comcast, they could care less, and if they don't watch out, it's one of those things where they could wake up and find themselves fifth or sixth down the list of internet service providers. And it is funny you mentioned locale, because I have a brother in New Hampshire and a brother in Oregon, and we all play the same instrument, and we had talked about exactly that.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things. I really hate saying it like this because I really do not want to sound pompous. I don't want to sound arrogant. I don't want to sound cocky. I don't want to sound like a know-it-all, because I know I'm an idiot. But I do know, with the low latency that 5G can offer on the right service plan, using the right kind of services on your back end, you guys will be able to literally harmonize in such a way where you literally feel like you're all in the same room. And that's the kind of thing that our future networks can promise. And I hate to say it, they will be able to deliver with or without the United States federal government approval or blockages or anything else.
Oh, without a doubt. The only thing I'm jealous of is that the NSA get to hear our music first.
Well, I know multiple people in the NSA, and I got good news for you, Bruce. They're just as stupid as everybody else. Don't get me wrong. There's some really nice people I know that work at the NSA, but if they were like somehow superiorly competent, the rest of the world would be in trouble. But they're not. They're just normal folk. So, yeah, we are just fine. Everybody else is just fine. Nothing is exploding. Nothing is being destroyed. Nothing is extremely changing. We all just wake up every morning, we yawn, we stretch, and we go about our day. Sometimes the NSA picks up little things here or there, but on the good side, they really don't have anything to do except just twiddle their thumbs.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm going to use this phrase, and I'm going to try to limit the number of times I use it through the life of this podcast. So AI is a very interesting aspect to all of this. And, like I said, I mean, it was one of those well worn out phrases, but after seeing how companies are using AI, I'm intrigued and scared at the same time. And I'm also interested in seeing how it's incorporated into different agencies, because that's one of the things. There's a new book that is coming out, if it already isn't out now, that actually discusses such things. Because they listen or record everything, and you've got to figure a way to filter through all of that stuff in real time, and artificial intelligence is actually what leads that marker. So I mean, there's, like I said, it's one of those things where it's terrifying, but it's also intriguing because of what it could possibly do. So I'm hoping that as long as the people are in charge that are making sure that it's being guided correctly, it's okay. Will it fall into wrong hands? Absolutely.
Well, yes, you don't even question that. I did have to talk my brother-in-law down from a cliff this past weekend, and I explained to him like this. The best thing you have to understand about AI is AI cannot even begin to understand the word intent. And because of that, there's no such thing as any AI or machine learning that can give you perfect answers. And the example I use is, there's no such thing as you putting a fingerprint in a system and it coming back and telling you there's a match. They don't do that. They come back and tell you, here's a subset of results that could be a match. Now, you, being the human, must go through and decide which is which. The same thing with facial recognition. There's no system in place in the world where you submit a face and it comes back and says, there's a match. They simply come back and say, here's a subset we think matches your criteria. Now you have to be the ultimate decider, human, and make the decision. And because of all that, every bit of AI, there is never an AI that comes back with an ultimate answer. Partially because we humans don't trust it, partially because it cannot even begin to understand the word intent. So we still have humans doing that final step, doing that final stance, doing that final stamp of approval. And because of that, I am very, very comfortable with when people say the United States government is using this, they're using that, they're using this, they're using that. Well, they are, but you got to remember, at the end of all these decision trees, there is a human being making those final answers. And I live right by Baltimore, Maryland, which means I know a great number of people who work at NSA. And with those people making decisions, I feel fine, because I know that they're going to take humanity into their final decision on whether or not to do something, whether or not to say something, whether or not to, push something through. AI, I think, is just a fancy term, a way of saying a system that allows people to do their jobs a little bit quicker.
Although, on the other hand, I could also see it used for entertainment purposes.
Oh, hell yes.
Can you imagine if it's like, all right, well, we, meaning some overlord who's decided that the media needs to start paying less attention to it. It's like, why don't we have a TV show about the Cleveland Browns, how they integrate AI to find their next quarterback?
Yes, and I will say this. I know more than a couple people who work at federal agencies with 3 letters who spend 6 nights a week in adult entertainment expos is what I'll say. And they tell me about the entertainment aspect that happens every day. And the way that they describe it, it's the kind of thing where if I was there, I'm pretty sure I would do the very same thing. So it's one of those things. It isn't good. It isn't bad. It isn't almighty. It isn't the end of everything. It's literally just a tool in one part of a chain of a workflow. And really, that's where it begins and that's where it ends.
And with that being said, I think also to the point of it being a tool in the proper context, in what I'm going to be experiencing it in the upcoming months, I actually look forward to it because I'll be exposed to this. And I do like it as a defense mechanism to protect your home, in a word. Although, that's actually something that might be more and more prevalent given the so-called Internet of Things, because there was an interesting story not too long ago, and again, it never really occurred to me that this would actually be a thing, but apparently one of the things you have to worry about is you have to worry about who you're giving the app to control your household with, because that's a big problem in this country where couples break up, and what do your exes do? They turn your heat up all the way, they turn it all the way off. So it's another thing.
Yeah, and like same thing about your car. And then if you take your car and sell your car, or you literally just get a rental car and you connect it to your house, sometimes when that car gets rented by the next person, surprise, they have access to all your data. We don't understand. I mean, it's like this. As a government employee, one of the worst things we do is onboarding and offboarding. I think IoT does a really horrible job of onboarding and offboarding. We try to make it easy to connect to things, but we never make it obvious how to disconnect.
Now, that's a very interesting statement that you just made about onboarding and offboarding. And I'd like to take that one off line at some point and talk to you a little bit more about it, because that is exactly what's happening in the place that I work at as well.
Okay. 31:15, a quick 2-minute break.
Fun.
Sorry, Bruce. I'm an Irish boy with a really small bladder.
Yep. Hold on for 1 sec.
Sure.
All right, fire away.
Yeah, I just want to say that's one of the things that I've tried to tell my job now for 20 years. Onboarding and offboarding is unbelievably vital and actually really easy to do if you just, like the old firefighter thing is, if you stop putting out fires and water your own flowers, you'll be unbelievably more productive. It's really difficult to get people to agree to such terms, though.
Yeah, well, just to give you an idea of where that question came from or why the discussion. So I work for a department which is called IAM, which is Identity and Access Management. So needless to say, that is right in our wheelhouse. So anyway, yeah, it's a discussion, as we mentioned before. This is enterprise, and we don't talk about enterprise.
Yeah. And I will say this, Bruce. I have now on my main work rig, I have Visual Studio 2015 installed, 2017 installed, 2019 installed, and Visual Studio Code installed. And I will say this, Visual Studio Code is the one that anyone can download. I was shocked. I was literally shocked at Facebook announcing last week that their official development platform would be Visual Studio Code. And then I go and I look at some of the plugins. I go look at some of the functionality. I go look at some of the things that I can do with Visual Studio Code. And I'm thinking, why in the hell isn't everybody abusing the crap out of this application right now? I understand if you're in the Java world, you want to use the other one that's really popular,
Eclipse
IDE, because it's really Java focused. But I can tell you, if you're not Java focused and you're not entertaining the idea of using VS Code, Visual Studio Code, I truly believe you're doing yourself a disservice.
You know, I generally don't find myself supporting Microsoft products, but I'm in complete agreement. When it became available as a Linux download, I wanted something a little bit different for Python. And oh, holy cow! You know, like I said, it was a revelation to me. You know, it's I can't crap all over an application just because it's made by somebody I don't care about. But this is made, and it's made well. And like you said, you know, scratching the surface of it, once you dig a little bit deeper and look at the plugins and stuff, it's like, wow, why haven't I been using this more often?
Yeah, and like I've used Sublime, I've used Genie, I've used Notepad++, I've used everything is what I'll say. And the ease of use, the comfort that you can get with a Microsoft application is something I never imagined plausible or possible, is what I'll say. And when I started using it, I found myself literally developing code quicker than I thought I could. And then I said to self, I need to take a day off of work, stay home and drink a lot of liquor because this is changing the rest of my life.
Which also, I think, for those out there who are really self-motivated, I'd be very curious about some of the feedback and what you're using for IDEs. And more importantly, the language that you're going in. I know that Codecademy is still one of the bigger places for people who are trying to get off the ground. But I'd be curious if there are like other intermediate sites that also help with code training.
Yeah, and what I'll say is it's a workflow thing, which is also like a Linux distro thing. Some people say Fedora is the best. Some people say Arch is the best. Some people say Mint is the best. Some people say Ubuntu is the best. Who's right? Ding, ding, ding. Nobody. It's what best conforms to your workflow, or what caveats are you willing to compromise on. Same thing with an IDE. And I hate to say it like this. An IDE is maybe more of a personal preference choice, where you might say Genie is the best because of XYZ. But if you were willing to relinquish some, I don't want to say freedoms, Bruce, because that makes me sound like a freedom hater. If you're willing to work on some of your morals, some of your ethics, some of your beliefs, some of your perspectives on reality, and try other solutions, you might be shocked how much quicker you might be able to get stuff done. And I'll say this, I'm nearly 50 years old now. I care about efficiency. I ain't got time for stuff. I need to be a father. I need to be a husband. I need to be a friend to people. I need to be a podcaster. I need to be everything else on top of trying to be the best developer I can be, in my 9 to 5. And I hate to say it like this. Visual Studio Code is shockingly simplistic. And the IntelliSense completion that happens inside of Visual Studio Code allows me to not remember a lot of stuff that I used to always have to reference and go search and copy and paste in. It's really, I hate to say it like this, it's a tool. It's not good. It's not bad. It's a tool. It depends on what you use it for. And I've been doing my damnedest to use it for good. And to be honest, I've been pretty damn successful in the last couple weeks.
Well, that's an area where, it's funny. You hit on a couple of things that I fully agree with you. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Time does matter. And for the time that I'm actually working, it's just a matter of finding something where you can just take it, hit the ground running, and go with it. So, yeah, like I said, at this point, totally embrace this, and we'll see where things are, because at that point, I would like to dedicate a little bit more time and help the cause. And if it means doing that, I think you and I had already discussed this. It's all about functionality and what's useful and what's practical. And this is practical.
Yes. And I will say it like this. The long and the short is time sensitive, time context. Amazon just basically sued the federal government because of a $10 billion contract being awarded to Microsoft for the Jedi Joint Initiative Defense Infrastructure, I believe is the acronym, because Amazon believes that they should have been more heavily considered, is what I'll say. As much as I despise everything about Microsoft, okay, there's few companies I am comfortable in saying are ready to accept such a responsibility as a global cloud computing hyperconvergence of cloud and local servers to enable programming languages to communicate on these wide area networks and these local area networks, these hybrid clouds, to be able to get things done without the end users even knowing that such an ecosystem exists. Microsoft has, since Steve Ballmer got booted out of Microsoft, been doing really smart things. The only name, in my humble opinion, doing things as smart or smarter than Microsoft has done in the last 10 years is Linux. Linux has sneakingly driven itself into everything, and everything has become silently dependent on Linux. I love the fact that now on a Windows server, on a Windows operating system desktop, I can literally install a Linux kernel. I can literally use the old classic commands of sed, awk, grep, and I can get things done. And I've found more productive ways to do a lot of things in the enterprise that normally I've been only able to do in my house. And I'll say it like this. I know now 8 or 9 people who work for Red Hat. And the fact that IBM has not completely screwed the pooch and IBM has let Red Hat remain Red Hat. I hate to say it like this, but as good as Microsoft has been doing in the last 5 or 10 years, the dirty secret is I think everyone's going to be shocked in the next 2 or 3 years with how popular Red Hat has become and how much they've infected every kind of ecosystem that actually exists out there. It's going to be an eye opener, I believe.
Well, and let's face it, it never gets old when you hear Bill Gates say his biggest regret ever was not getting in the Android space.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, Microsoft has already announced a Android-based operating system that they're going to release, a Surface, I'm going to say Neo, and then a Surface Go, running Android operating systems. Free Libre open source will become the norm, and to have isolated, siloed operating systems will become the one-off. They're going to become less and less popular. And I hate to say it like this, but the keystone in this whole thing, in the timeline of everything, is going to be, when does Apple change? It might take 3 years, it might take 5 years, it might take 7 years, but I can guarantee you this. Apple is already based upon Unix. The only question becomes, when do they actually become that instead of just being based upon it?
Well, that's actually an intriguing question. I don't know. I'd like to think that arrogance will carry the day through for them and that they continue this really broken, crappy model. And then, ask any of your company's admins about how they feel about Microsoft being in the workplace. I mean, Apple being in the workplace. I'm sure you'll get some glares, but this latest OS upgrade has just been playing havoc with crappy applications like Adobe, who I even hate more.
I honestly can't believe Adobe still exists. I don't know what it's going to take for them to either modernize in air quotes and become a normal company or just die. I despise them so much.
Well, see, here's the thing. They have died and they've gone to heaven. They live in the cloud.
And then they come back to life. It's Canadians. And I mean, they don't even say that they're sorry. I was going to say, tell me I'm wrong.
I'm still joking.
Okay, well, I'll say it like this. Anybody who wants to know when we're going live, all you got to do is go to Hootsuite, twitter.com/podnuts, or go to youtube.com/Linux for the rest of us and hit subscribe. We will be posting the live links there. We also are in Discord. If you want a Discord invite, I got to put it on the main website. We are on Discord. We also have a Mattermost server, and what I will say is it is a unbelievably peaceful Mattermost server. It's the kind of server where if you drop in, you don't have to worry about too many conversations happening that you won't be able to keep up on. And I literally pay $15 a month for this Mattermost server, even though I'm the only one to post anything on that Mattermost server for, I want to say, the last 90 days. But that's okay. It could be worse. And if you want to send us a email, we always have podcast at linuxfortherestofus.com, or you can send an email to mail@podnuts.com with the subject line podcast at linuxfortherestofus.com. I will thank William Dupuie, Dupuie, who's our newest Patreon, who's giving more a month to Patreon than I think I've ever given any month to Patreon, is what I will say. I don't want to say the number because I don't want to try to donate shame other people to try to match that number. So thank you, William. And I want to thank everyone who supports us on Patreon. Because of you, me and Bruce don't have to stop talking every 15, 20 minutes and insert some unbelievably tasteless ad for some product that we don't believe in, we don't trust, we don't like, and we don't have anything to do with, but we'll shove down your throat like we are classless, tasteless people, like virtually every other Linux podcast out there. And I'm right when I say that. Bruce, do you have any parting words? I don't want to say last words because that might sound a bit bad.
Well, given my age, that might be appropriate. However, I'll leave folks with this sort of clickbaity sort of announcement that we've got some interesting things coming up in the upcoming weeks. So stay tuned for those.
Very cool, very cool. And I will say, Bruce privately asked me what he could do to help the network. And this is what I will say publicly. I need a lot of help. I am not organized. I am not focused. But here's the thing. I don't want anybody to help me with anything unless they get something out of it in return. If you listening to this show would like to contribute to anything I do, you have to get something out of it in return. I want you to get either credibility. I want you to get name recognition. I want you to get some kind of publicity out of it. I don't expect to get anything from anybody without them reciprocating and getting something out of it as well. We in Podnuts believe, first and foremost, familia, family first. Without family, there's nothing else. I don't care about download numbers. I don't care about download counts. I don't care if we get 20,000 downloads. If I don't get at least 2 or 3 emails a month, I'm just going to stop doing the show. If I don't get some kind of interactions every now and then, we're just going to stop it. And I'll just go and I'll just bring Bruce a pizza every couple months and I'll just sit down and talk to him. Because that's, to be honest, more fun. Bruce, I really hope you have a good holiday here coming up. And I really do hope we get to talk in the next week or so. I don't think we have anything else to really cover.
No, I'm not sure how old some of the fan letters were, but I mean, I think we had caught up about to everyone. Did you have one more from, was it Paul?
I do know I had an email from Paul.
Well, I'll tell you what, if it's unrelated, whatever, we can always bring that up in the next episode.
I'll say I almost can't remember. Paul was one of the things Paul was asking for was a copy of my OPML file. Long story short, I listened to anywhere from 130 to 160 podcast feeds. Typically, it's around 20 to 46 hours worth of audio a day. I do plan on exporting my podcast OPML, but it comes with a warning. Okay, I listen to everything from Carl Sagan Cosmos to Ancient Aliens.
Intriguing. Go on.
So you cannot believe anything that I subscribe to is something I unbelievably believe in, because I once in a while listen to things just to hear what people think. I like to be able to go into work. I like to be able to talk to my wife and actually understand what other people are thinking and perceiving. Like, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. I don't want to cuss, but what are you smoking? Of course he killed himself. He tried to kill himself like 4 times in the previous 3 weeks before he killed himself because, he's a pedophile. But I digress.
Well, I guess if there's one person who I'm thinking would hope it would go away, we're looking at you, Andrew.
Exactly. Bruce, I would definitely want to thank you for coming out. I want to thank everyone for the YouTube live coming out. Charles in the YouTube chat says, forget Mattermost. I would like to, but I can't, because Mattermost to me is one of those things. I love the ecosystem. I love the interface. I love the software. Unfortunately, right now we don't have the people on it, but that could change any day. I'm going to talk to everyone again here really soon. And whatever you do never, ever, ever, ever forget. Doesn't matter the device. It doesn't matter the platform. It doesn't matter the ecosystem. It doesn't matter the time context. It could be 20 years ago. But don't forget, if you do not have root, you really, really, really do not know who does. Take it easy, everybody. It was getting, I can't remember the word they used, but it was like it was escalating every week, getting better.
Well, I think it also helps because, there is so much out. And the best part about it is that I think we take the right approach. We don't assume, the knowledge is there, and yeah, you know what? I think the thing is that you've got 2 people that are like minds too, and that helps a lot.
Yeah, but I forgot to tell you, I got an email from Klaatu.
Oh no!
Exactly. See, exactly. And I was like, I saw the email from Klaatu, dude. I'm not gonna lie, I literally got a panic attack, Bruce. And just to let you know, we are still streaming live on YouTube. I literally got a panic attack when I saw the email, and I was at work and I started breathing really heavy, and it was like I had to like leave. And I had to like walk, and I literally ended up walking for 6 miles, like speed walking, because I was terrified to open the email. And then I went back into work and I, focused on blah, 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 blah. And then I opened up his email and I was gently shocked is what I'll say. And he said, "Thanks for the flattery. Hey, Dor, catching up on shows, and I heard the super nice things you guys said about me on the show. Your shows are always amazing. I stand in awe of Podnuts Network as a whole. For the record, I don't speak on behalf of any corporation, whether I get paid by them or not. That said, your policy of not putting people in that position is admirable, but that's no surprise because you're a pretty awesome dude. Thanks for giving my show a recommendation. Keep up the good work."
Phenomenal. You really need to read that next week.
I know, but here's the thing. I literally believe I developed a hemorrhoid worrying about this email because, Bruce, I've literally had easily 1,000 concussions, okay? So when I see an email from Klaatu, I literally think, oh my God, what did I say? I can't remember what I said. Did I say something bad? Did I say something good? I don't know what I said. Oh my God, I probably said something really rude. I said something obnoxious. I said something very challenging. I don't think I should have said what I said, but I probably said something really bad. And then but then here's the thing, Bruce. I went back and I listened to 3 shows. And you ready?
Yep.
He doesn't listen to the show. He doesn't. Somebody told him on this episode, Dor said blah, 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 blah. Because the very next episode, I said something not favorable to him. And then 5 days after that new episode got released, he sent me this email. And then I'm thinking to myself, he doesn't even have the testicular fortitude to tell me he doesn't listen.
Well, I don't know that.
I don't know. Well, and that's the thing. I don't know. I just believe.
Well, I think at the very minimum, that's stuff we can run with. He's a good guy, and like I said, every interaction I've had with him, I really regret, not being able to, he's someone that you definitely go out to try and help as well.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. I only criticize things that I believe in. You know what I mean? I don't criticize things that I think are garbage. Because, like Jupiter Broadcasting, it's too easy. Why would I criticize it? I criticize Klaatu because I believe he's better than any of my criticisms could even begin to describe. And I, hold only a few people to my, inner standards. And, when I listen to him talk, he's pompous. He's arrogant. He's self-serving. He's unbelievably myopic in his own dimensions. But when you ask him something he doesn't know, his candor is unchallenged. It is unbelievable. It is the kind of thing that makes me giddy when I ask him something and he doesn't understand, and then he literally shuts his mouth, admits his incompetency, does research, educates himself, becomes a better person, and then responds completely. It's the kind of thing where it's well, now you're making me feel like I'm incompetent because I should have just researched it myself. All right, I'm going to kill the live stream because I got to go to the bathroom again.
Yeah, I guess I should show myself out and get a few things done. But let's talk more about the Facebook page down the road. And